How we doing, ladies and gentlemen, over on the YouTube side of things? My name is Wolf, and I am now in the top 1% of the Fellowship community. I am a top 1% Helena, as you can see on the screen. I am 822. So, to all of the lovely people telling me I have no fucking idea what I'm talking about, I'm now quite literally in the top 1% on one roll, and then top 5% on a secondary role. So, I'd like to hope I at least have some skin in the game at this point. With that being said, I want to talk about my thoughts overall on the game. I have cleared everything in Paragon, and some of them are timed, some of them are not timed. However, with this game, you still get dungeon rating even if you don't time them. There was a minus 1 second clear on this at one point, which was a little bit fucking tragic. But you can see here, we have progged everything, Drakkenheim included, even though the Drakkenheim was a very heavily missed time. We did kill it. I have now seen everything Fellowship has to offer, excluding into Eternal. I'm going to be going into Eternal probably tomorrow and or in a couple of days. We currently don't have enough players to do it, and my team is offline. So with that being said, I want to talk about my experience with the game as a whole, climbing all the way up, pushing the ladder, and my thoughts on some of the characters, the gameplay, and just everything overall. So that being said, this is absolutely my game of the Eon. It's been upgraded from Game of the Decade originally. It is probably the best game I have ever played. And I hope that it stays down the design choice and design paths it is taking, and does not cater to half of these dumb fucks who are attempting to turn it into a World of Warcraft clone. This game is something special if you see it as its own unique thing. If you see it as a game with a World of Warcraft combat system that you want to turn into a World of Warcraft 2, please get the fuck off my game. Good talk. Now that I've pissed everyone off, allow me to explain why. The power of Fellowship comes through Fellowship. Unironically. This game allows you to do a plethora of things, and unfortunately some of them do require friends and being nice to people, which is going to be a massive problem for the fact that Fellowship is starting to develop already a toxic solo queue community. This is something I'm trying to combat over and over and over again, because once I get the access to making a guild, will be making a fellowship in Fellowship called the Fellow Shillers. You are more than welcome to join at any point. Any toxicity will not be tolerated. My invite link is on screen, and you can also join my Discord, which has basically become a mini guild chat. Reason being is that to play this game effectively, you should play it in a team. You do not have to play it solo queue if you don't want to, because there are people who are willing to work with you and play nicely. You will probably not, however, find them in solo queue, as from what I've been hearing, people are having a very, very miserable time, whilst I am having a very great time playing with absolute randoms on stream. I play with viewers every single day. If you're a Paragon player, you can join at any point. If you're a champion player, you can join at any point. Adept, contender, etc. I go all the way down and all the way back up. My plan is to eventually Paragon/Eternal every single character in the game, put out build guides on all of them, and do a sort of thoughts on kind of thing as time goes on. The next characters I'm going to probably do is Sylvie, I would think, and then maybe I do some tank stuff with Miko or whatever the next character is or whatever have you. Reason that I suggest you find friends and or start being nicer to people is because I'm about to kill your entire progression attempt in one swift movement. When you climb all of this, the endgame Eternal mode does not have a solo queue. You cannot play this mode alone. You bitch all the time as an entire community about how long the DPS queues are and are not willing to role swap to healer or tank. So just imagine how much fun you're going to have making it to the endgame to then discover there is no solo queue option for Eternal, which will force you to indulge in the powers of Fellowship. Not just the fact that you need friends, but the fact that you will eventually have to play Flex if you want to find a team. Because at the moment, 2% of the player base of this game are playing tank. As you can see in the queues, underpopulated queue in Paragon, underpopulated queue in Champion, underpopulated queue in Adept, and underpopulated queue in Contender. If you want free Paragon all the way through, and you have hands, Tank is the way to get there. Tanking in this game is actually exceptionally fun. It is the people that make it a fucking horrid experience. I have yet to do the entire thing in solo queue. I did play, like I said, all the way up with players from stream, which are arguably completely randoms at the exact same time. They're just people seeking someone out who has reasonable intentions rather than just deciding to queue randomly. I will do a full solo queue to Paragon series, probably for all roles at some point, depending how much pain I wish to endure. Currently, I'm enjoying playing with a lot of people from stream and going down doing carries and messing around and trying to prog and what have you. I do want to assemble a static at some point, so if you're a Paragon Eternal high rank player and are interested in a full static where we play and try and prog Eternal for leaderboard, do feel free to join the Discord in the description down below. So, with that all in all, how's the game? Fan-fucking-tastic. Absolutely fantastic. According to our little swap hero panel here, the biggest complaint that people have with Fellowship is that the entire roster look like DEI hires. No, I'm not kidding. It's that stupid. There's 2 women, Tariq, our boy the Vig, and a furry icon. That is the biggest complaints that Fellowship has across the board, and what I keep hearing over and over and over again is that people do not vibe with the design aesthetics of the game, which is a massive shame because you are denying yourself fantastic gameplay. The overall gameplay of every single character in this game is genuinely fantastic. I have played every single one, and I will play them to a very, very, very far and deep point, all of which are just exceptionally fun across the board. The playstyles I have covered in quick start guides and beginner's guides, all of which you can find on the channel, to break them down and teach them to you as simply as possible. They are not difficult. This game is not hard. The difficulty rating on these characters are very, very wrong. I'm exceptionally excited for new characters across the board, because whatever design choices this design team decides to do, I trust them, and I believe in them, because they are people who have played their game. They are people who have played the roles that they have put into this game, and genuinely understood them and took the best parts of them and implemented them into their game. An indie studio is the only thing that could have made a game like this, because you can tell it was made with passion. Fellowship is a game that if you've ever played Game Dev Tycoon, they put everything into gameplay. And God, you can feel it, you can play it, and you can goddamn love it. I've put 130 hours into this game. It came out last week. I don't have a problem. You have a problem. In doing so, I have met some very fantastic new people. They're absolutely incredible, and I have made a lot of friends as a result of it, who are now in my Discord keeping things perpetually full. New people come into the stream all the time, I help them out, we have a good time, and it's an absolute vibe. And I want to keep it that way as long as possible. Now, you'll see right here, there are multiple characters you can pick from, albeit they're not satisfactory for some of the people, which seems to be an ongoing problem. But when the only issue the Fellowship has is the lack of character diversity, I think you've got a pretty good game on your hands. If you have nothing else to complain about except the fact you don't have self-inserts, I think the gameplay is pretty fucking good. If that doesn't tell you what these people are really prioritizing in their life, I don't know what would. Which is a shame, because if you decide to embrace what this game has to offer in its style, it is by far the genuine best game I have ever played. For the reason of, you, as I said, are forced to play Flex if you want to play Eternal, which then means you should be playing multiple roles and multiple characters, which will make you a better MMO player across the board, and or better at Fellowship if you're trying to actually push the leaderboard. Now, reason for this is that most people are going to want to have one character geared up and ready to flex within a team to be able to find their Eternal team and their Eternal slot. which will make it so you can actually play with randoms. Because right now, if you want to get into Eternal, you have to either go into Paragon, find a game, and find a team that will stick with you after clearing whatever the Paragon key is, to then play Eternal if they have Prague to Drakkenheim, or join a LFG Discord to find Eternal games. So, those are your options. Prague it and pray, make friends on the way up, or be a flexible player who says LFG will play all roles Eternal. Those are your options. You embrace the Fellowship, you get the Fellowship. And with that, you get to play a plethora of roles across the board with varying different playstyles, with fantastic build diversity across the board. As I said, you can play a absolute shit ton of things. You can play in multiple ways, and each character has a bunch of different design options due to the way the stat spread and talents and extra talent trees are all set up, and it just makes for incredible build diversity, even though it also retains a vast simplicity that allows you to join and have a good time basically right off the bat. Now, if you are joining and playing right off the bat, you are going to struggle. And there is, unfortunately, a casual wall that you will hit relatively quickly. You are not making it to Paragon if you are keyboard turning and clicking your abilities. I'm sorry, it's going to be very, very difficult. If you can do it, by all means, you're a god. However, some of these mechanics are fucking brutal. I love it. It's very fun. It's a good time to actually have a challenge in a game for the first time in a while, and having a challenge with a full team is always fun because getting cancer is more fun with friends. So, when we come in here, what would I say about this system? I do like it, however, it needs work. What I would suggest doing is taking half of the mechanics of Adept and putting them in Champion, because at the moment, it's a bit of a wild diversity, because what winds up happening is after you've cleared Adept, you've seen the game. Unfortunately. Because I got told when I first started playing that the Adept was the most difficult part of the game. And I thought, like you're thinking right now, you're on crack and you're coping. However, as I progressed to Paragon and made it to Endgame, he wasn't wrong. The only other hard part will be Eternal's ability to quite literally one-shot you, because you'll hit a infinite scaling modifier where you get absolutely slapped. So, the reason this is the hardest part of the game is because this is where they add all of the new mechanics, and they do not fuck around when it comes to new mechanics. You go from very, very easy to kill bosses in Contender that are very understandable and friendly to new players, to, do I die to one screen-wide AoE or the second screen-wide AoE? Very, very fast. Take Empyrean Sands 4, for example, which its new mechanic is quite literally adding a full screen AoE that can overlap with the boss positioning. Now, if you're a bad tank, I'm saying bad loosely, you'll position the boss without understanding that there's mirrors on the corners of the room that will dictate where the lasers are going to go, and you'll just put the boss in the middle of a laser, and it will be, captured. Do you want to die, or do you want to die? I'm hella sad, thank you very much for the Twitch follow, you are perfectly on time, because that's what Adept players feel like. Reason being, is that in Champion, you gain access to some of the best stuff in the game. Your progression system really comes online at the end of Champion and Paragon. Excuse me, sorry. It's been 15 hours, I've been streaming for a minute. Reason being is that in Contender, you are getting a feel for the game. At the end of Contender, you clear Cithral's Fall if you get the opportunity to. And what you should do is take whatever item you get from Cithral's Fall and roll it into an Adept weapon, or a blue weapon. Because what it'll then do is give you access to a weapon ability. In this case, Sariel's Arms, that I'm currently wearing on my character, is absurdly powerful. So this is my health bar. This is what one button press of Sariel's Arms does. Slightly underpowered, if you ask me. So, this thing is so absolutely busted that if you don't have it and you're in Adept, you're trolling. It's that simple. Whether you're a tank, you're a healer, or you're a DPS, if you don't have a weapon skill, it's a giga yikes across the board. So, what you should do is then take your item and immediately roll it to a weapon as soon as humanly possible. And then you go into Adept. Now, the irony about Adept is it is both the hardest tier because of mechanic upgrades and the worst tier to progress through. Because knowing what I know, Adept is the tier you want to spend as little resources in as possible. Because once you get to Champion, you get access to a weapon talent tree that allows you to absolutely nuke the entire game. However, because you get access to a weapon talent tree that allows you to do insane damage, you don't want to spend your resources in Adept. Which means you simultaneously have two different problems. You are hit with a giga difficulty spike from a new mechanic in every single dungeon, plus the added modifiers on every single dungeon, which makes it much harder, coupled with the fact you don't want to spend resources to progress through Adept because you want to save your resources for Champion. So you wind up with a scenario where your goal is to actually cheese Adept 7 as fast as humanly possible, as early as humanly possible. As our boy Alarian just absolutely yells his heart out behind us. Because your goal is now to either time or fail. Well, no, you have to time at this point, because now your stuff gets downgraded. If you fail a Contender 7, you still get blues, you can still roll it to a weapon. You can literally go into a Zithral's Fall, fail it, kill everything, get a blue, roll it to a weapon, pop the fuck off. If you get into Adept and you go all the way to the end, you then cannot fail the Tuzari and get a purple. You have to time the Tuzari. So your goal is to time it as fast as possible, to which Tuzari is a rather difficult dungeon. And then you want to take that item all the way over here to our little roller right here, Master Craftsman Braggy, because you'll be bragging about how much fucking damage you deal. And you put this bastard in here, you hit yourself with a little reforge, and you try and get a weapon. And then when you get a champion weapon, you're going to come over here to the Shrine of Infusion and unlock your weapon skill tree, which allows you to get very stupid things. For example, my Visions of Grandeur here. This is the master node in your weapon. This scales up based on your weapon points. In my case, I have a 7 out of 8 weapon, which allows me to get the whole skill tree. You can then also empower things in here. This will make it so that you can actually take these nodes and upgrade them for 1,000 gold once you get to Paragon. Your original weapon will be 1 out of 1. These go up to 1 out of 4. The Paragon weapons are 2 out of 2. The other weapons for Eternal are 4 out of 4. So, with that allows you to get exceptionally stupid and then create Buildcraft. Now, what's even better, you can take this weapon, and if it rolled like absolute donkey ocelot shit, come over here, back to our boy, because you're going to brag about what you roll. Go over here, hit a weapon attunement, and then roll the traits completely randomly to something entirely different. Now you'll see on this weapon, right over here, that if we come up back here again, each one of these is colored differently. Because for whatever reason in this game, color is a big thing across the goddamn board. I know, I hate it here too. So, heroic tier talents, defensive talents, master tier talents. When you use the reroll of each type, you can roll all of the green talents at once to be completely randomized. Or you can roll all of the blue talents at once to be completely randomized. Or you can roll the endgame talents. Okay, well, Wolf, what's so good about these? I mean, of course, they're good, sure, I get that, but what kind of power do you mean? Oh, I don't know. How about the shield I just showed you with my entire goddamn health bar being reset on your ultimate, for example? That might be slightly powerful. No? Maybe? Sorta? Just a bit. Alright. Hopefully you get my point. So, now you understand what I mean when I say you really don't want to waste resources in Adept. So this is where you hit what I'm calling the casual wall. Is a lot of people are not going to be able to time a Tuzari because it is the first dungeon that is very difficult. The final boss will fuck your shit up over and over and over again, especially if you pull them through the middle and don't realize what you're doing. You have been trained and conditioned at this point because Fellowship's game design is overall fantastic. If you do the first set of contender dungeons, they actually condition you for the final dungeon. If you take a look at how the keys work and the gameplay progression system works, if you are doing the dungeons in contender, you're killing ice shardlings, which are in the final endgame area. In Wormheart, the runes you're kicking are in the final endgame area. It all sort of comes together to condition you how to play Cithral's Fall without actually teaching you how to play Cithral's Fall. The problem is when you then get into Adept, you're replaying the exact same dungeons with added modifiers. It's not teaching you anything about what's going to be happening in Tuzari at the end of the dungeon, or the end of the set. So Tuzari will fuck you up, and it won't even be remotely close. So, now couple in mind adding all of these things together. You are prepped for what you're dealing with here, and you are eased in. The moment you hit Adept, you are absolutely screen-fucked with a massive increase of health on all of the mobs, and you want to actually use as minimal resources here as possible because your power level starts to come online the moment you get to Champion. So you will struggle your way through Adept, finally find a team that can time the Tuzari, and then take the Tuzari item and do the same thing you did in Contender, which is roll the Tuzari purple immediately to a purple weapon, which then will unlock your talent tree, like I showed you, and allow you to start fucking things up. Then your goal is to immediately queue Champion and try and do Champion 1s as much as possible to skip this whole tier and replace all of your gear with Champion gear as soon as humanly possible. Once you do that, you then progress your way through Champion and you clear Wraithtide Vault, which is arguably the easiest dungeon and the easiest capstone in the entire fucking game. Well, no, the easiest dungeon in the game is probably Wormheart or Everdawn Grove. I'd probably say Everdawn Grove is the easiest dungeon in the game, thankfully. Hopefully they don't extend it because it is very, very fun. But I did kill the deer with a tank buster once, which is a bit of a choice. So, once you progress through that and get your way to Champion 7, then you'll have an immeasurable amount of power, making it so that you can then go into Paragon with what should be some multiple set bonuses and some very, very nice weapons, which allows you to get into the endgame-ish content, which is your gem system, right here, which is a second talent tree, a third talent tree, I suppose, which allows you to stack extra stuff over top of everything else you've already gotten. So, the thing that happens here is you get exponentially more powerful because you get more systems unlocked in Champion and Paragon. The only system you get unlocked in Adept is the refund button for the fucking game. But by this point, you're past your 2-hour window, and so they're going to turn shit up and fuck you up. But the thing is when you get into Champion and Paragon, there's no added mechanics. The only thing that changes is in Champion, they make it so that you get a second modifier, which are all of the same modifiers from Adept stacked on top of each other. So, if you thought it was bad here, it only gets worse, as of course you would expect because of progressing difficulty, but the game itself doesn't feel like it gets harder, because it gets worse because there's more stuff, but you have more options to make yourself powerful and broken, which means that you actually have more utility and availability to counter the bullshit they just threw at you. So then by the time you get to Paragon, you're still playing the same game that you were playing in Adept. Now don't get me wrong, it's a fantastic game and I genuinely love playing it. However, I am still playing the dungeons in Paragon relatively the same as I did in Contender, Adept, and Champion, just with added mechanics and 2 modifiers. In Paragon, you just need to make sure to gear a relatively adequate amount and pop off. This makes it so that then you can start to gear your character, start to slowly go through your gem system, drop a YOLO legendary like your boy off of a random-ass spider kill that we didn't even time, and then make your way into Eternal, where you can start to do Giga leaderboard pushes and have it be a fantastic time. Now, with all of that being said, what I think they should do with this system is a couple of different things. They should take the they should take half of the mechanics from Adept, and they should spread them into Champion to pad out the difficulty curve. Because if you've played Empyrean Sands 4, a keyboard turning, clicking casual is going to stop there. And I want this game to succeed. I want it to do as well as humanly possible. I want everyone who is willing to become a fellow shiller and start shilling this game to everyone who will listen. Because it's exceptional across the board and a genuine riot to play. However, if you hit casuals with Empyrean Sands 4 fucking laser beams, I don't think they're going to be around very long. So that mechanic, for example, should be moved to Champion tier. And things like the soak in the Warlord Brog fight should be added in Adept to then start to teach you that if you don't soak things, you will die. Which then means as you get into Champion and Paragon, you've now had practice soaking things. If you don't interrupt things, you will die. Which then in Champion and Paragon, you get conditioned to interrupt. Of course, it's early access. I'm not going to ask or require any of these things. We're doing it as we go, and I don't think they expected this game to be even half as popular as it has turned out to be, which is spectacular because they've made a bag, and hopefully they can continue to design the exceptional game that this is. So, sorry, I've been on a bit of a rant. I need to enjoy myself a little fucking more. If it sounds like I've gone a little bit off the deep end. So, let me swing it back around here. The other thing I think they need to do is make it so that the quick play option here is a little bit better. Because you see, the big issue that people are having is that people are just leaving games. Unfortunately, the Fellowship experience is being ruined by toxic people, which is a shame. The way I think they fix it is they add a pause system, because keep in mind, all of these keys are timed. I suggest what you should do is to remove the timer from Contender entirely and make it so the timer starts in Adept. When you're playing here, casual players can learn at their own pace and or even stay here if they want to without a timer and have a very, very good time. And then once you get to Adept, that's where the game really starts to turn into M+. You add some new mechanics over the stuff that they've learned to play, you add a timer, and you start to prepare them with interrupts and soaks and a timer for Champion and Paragon. At the moment, it's not like that. The timer starts at 4, which is a bit brutal, but it gets you going. So, I had a direction where I was going to take this, but I've kind of lost it. Oh, no, I remember now. So, then, as you progress through, you'll get better and better and better as time goes on. Problem being, like I said, is that people are currently leaving keys. So, they most likely need to add some kind of lever penalty, which they will hopefully get to. But what they should actually add on top of that is a refill system. Okay? They should add the ability to pause the game once you hit Adept, Champion, Paragon, etc. To then pause the timer to allow you to refill and add new people to the game. Dota 2 does this in an exceptional way, which is you get to vote for a pause, which will pause the entire game. Now, it's a little bit more difficult to do in Fellowship, because if you do that, then people can probably move around while the enemies are frozen and all that sort of stuff. So you would freeze the timer, make enemies not killable whatsoever, so that you can still inspect the dungeon, because there's no training mode or anything like that. So being able to inspect the dungeon and plan a route ahead would also be very nice for people to get practice and experience. But there's nothing like that. There's no training mode. You can go back afterwards, but that's it. And then you should allow people to fill the slot that has been taken up with quick play. Because as it stands, quick play is actually the real endgame. I'm not joking, because what you need at endgame to actually progress your character is these boxes over here. You are gatekept by materials from this vendor. These vendors sell things for Marks of Fellowship, which are a resource that you can get from quick plays guaranteed, or from some of my farms on the channel. So, you wind up having 306 eye-level people spamming quick plays because they need to buy out all of these marks every single day to be able to actually progress their character and their build to be able to hit rerolls over and over via the Hero Godstone and the Legends Godstone, unless they end up just farming Eternals, praying they drop the fucking things. So this winds up with people actually having quick play, the original option that you had in the game, be the real end game. Because keep in mind, you can't solo queue Eternal, so you can't farm the thing that can give you the Godstones. So if you're playing alone, you're playing quick play to earn the Marks of Fellowship, to buy your options here, to then gear yourself out and optimize yourself out until your static gets online so that you can then play Eternal. What I think they should do is nuke this option from the fucking high heavens and completely replace it with the ability to join any in-progress key whatsoever by pressing Find Game. If I could just sit here as a Paragon player who has access to everything, click Find Game, and it has the option to put me in either a empty key that has lost a tank, or any key throughout this difficulty roster that is currently searching for a tank, I would sit here for the rest of my life. This should be able to allow you to click Find Game, and then find an open key in either Contender, Adept, Champion, or Paragon. Then what happens is you have an incentive for players to go back and help people, because what is happening right now is there is not enough tanks in all of these roles. There was, in a snapshot and a screenshot I've put on the channel, 6 tanks, 6 tanks, 8 tanks, 4 tanks. Brutal! Unfucking playable, and arguably unsustainable. So if you change this quick play system to be set up in a way that you click Find Game, and it puts you in either a Contender 3 because they need a tank, and then downscales you because the downscaling already exists. An Adept 6 because they need a tank and their tank left. A Champion 2 because they need a tank and their tank left. Or a Dreckenheim 7 because they decided to prog it and the guy fucking quit halfway through. You are able to then be a hero, come in, get extra rewards, and have a good time helping people, to which you would then make friends, to which those friends you would then help boost up through the ranks, help get better, to then have an eternal group of players, because you've made friends. I know, simple enough, it's kind of in the name, it's called Fellowship, and we're making it fucking toxic. It's like we can't read. It's a shame, unfortunately. So, I'm going to do my absolute best to try and keep it 100 with you and make it as nice as humanly possible as I can. And the moment they add guilds, or in my case, I'm hoping they add fellowships to Fellowship, it's low-hanging fruit, but you have to take it. Otherwise, you're doing yourself a absolute disservice. The fellow shillers will be around the game as much as humanly possible, trying to keep a good vibe. So that being said, I think that is going to bring us to the conclusion of this video of my thoughts on Fellowship after hitting top 1%. If you don't believe me, it is, like I said, literally on screen right now. I shall show you my rank on both global and the hero leaderboard, which I believe has slightly changed as I've been sitting here talking. There are still people pushing the leaderboards, but just to showcase it to you, that is my global overall rank in all heroes, over 69,000, which is absolutely lovely, all the way at the end here. So if you do the math, that puts me in the top 1 point something % of players. I think it's like 1.68, maybe 1.7 now as I've sat here and ranted. And on Helena, this will put me in the top 1% of players, top 1.3%, I believe it was, when I took this original screenshot over here for my absolute highest peak overall. You can see I hit this today, and I've already gone down 70 points, because all of the tanks are progressing through Paragon, because you're able to just queue tank and go all the way to the end. Because unfortunately, there is a massive problem with this game that is not being addressed, because as I explained it here, there's one final thing that I will end off on, which is that for as filled with wonderful game design as this is, they shoot themselves in the fucking leg. Which is that every time you switch heroes, like I was saying, you should switch heroes to play Flex, you, once you clear the game, have access to this vendor. The Quartermaster, who, for supplies, which is an in-game currency, will allow you to buy eye level 135 gear, and or eye level equal to the highest gear you've cleared. Now, what this does is perpetuate the same cycle and the same problem. So in my case now, as a high tier player, there is never any incentive to go and fill these lower queues whatsoever, which is why I came up with the quick play idea, or some semblance of it. Because Once you have access to this vendor, it is account-wide. So were I to switch to Mako, what would wind up happening is I can go to Mako, go in and buy 135 eye-level white items, which then I buy every single slot in 135 eye-level whites by spamming quick plays for my main, because quick plays give you supplies and marks of fellowship, like I showed you here. And while I'm spamming marks of fellowship to get the gear from my main, I'm also spamming and getting the supplies, which will then allow me to buy gear to boost my secondary characters. Now this is why there are no tanks whatsoever in lower queues, because what winds up happening is people like me, who hit the top 1% of the leaderboard, will then have the resources, provided they go about doing the rest of the game as they need to, from farming all of this, to then go, okay, I know what I'm going to do now, I'm going to switch to the new tank. Imagine, for example, there's a new hero that they add that is the little white male self-insert that these fucking man-children want, and all you do on day one, you know you have the tank coming up, the new release is coming in a week, okay, we farm supplies, we prep. New hero comes out, play hero, walk over to the vendor, buy yourself a nice little 135 eye level item. Cool, that's spectacular. My eye level just goes up 10 points from buying this. And then we click our play button, we click challenge, we click contender. You notice how you can't do the rest of the game because you need a specific eye level. Eye level 135 that it gives you here will put you in eye level to time champion queue. Now if you are playing solo queue, what will happen is this queue is based off of eye level. So you'll hit find game, and then it will immediately put you in a 5, 6, 7, to which your team will then pick 7, because of course they want to do the highest one. It gives you blues, so then you will just forcibly get required to do 7s until you time them, which means that eventually you will time your 1, 7, and then bam, you're an adept. Now you've already cleared to champion to be able to unlock this vendor, so you know what's coming for you, and you now know you want to spend as little resources as possible, hit champion, and roll a weapon. So your goal with 135 white eye level is to push your way through adept and get to champion, get your weapon, and you're up. Now, this makes it so that contender is effectively useless and will never have people going back to it, which winds up with a problem of a lot of people stuck here and nobody able to get out, because there is 2% of the population playing tanks, and those people who are playing tanks don't actually do the full cycle of going through the whole process, hitting Paragon, hitting Eternal, and going, I'm going to play something different, going all the way back down to Contender, and then doing the whole process again. What winds up happening is they go all the way up with their game knowledge and understanding, get all of their resources and materials, come to this vendor, buy all of this, hit play, and then go right back here, equip it all, play one Sithral's Fall, and they're here. And like that, you have a very quick population problem that can wind up killing the game very, very quickly because these players cannot find games. And then, when these players decide, I can't find a game, I'm playing DPS and healer, I'm going to switch to tank because fuck this, I can't find a game. What's going to wind up happening is they're going to get flamed because they don't know what they're doing, because the trickle-down elitism and just absolute bullshit will come all the way down from Eternal, where people are saying, oh, at Eternal, you run this path, you run this build, you run this, you run this, you run this. And then what winds up happening is we wind up creating a very toxic environment for new players that is completely bypassed by experienced players because they play one game, they're in adept, and they go forward. So unfortunately, I hope this gets fixed across the board because it could use some work. That being said, it is in early access, so I'm putting all of this into one big video so that hopefully the dev team can see it at some point if I'm absolutely lucky enough, and maybe something gets fucking addressed here. Because with that being said, this is by far my favorite game of all time, and I'm going to do my best to cover every single inch of it. That is my experience from playing Fellowship and getting to the top 1% of the player base. It's absolutely exceptional if you're playing in a stack, and it is a very interesting experience if you're playing solo queue. Depending on what role you pick, you will have a vastly different experience of whether you're playing sit-in queue simulator, get yelled at simulator, get to Paragon very easily simulator, or fucking anything in between. Fellowship is one of the greatest games of all time if you're able to play it.